And you heard some remarks there. Stephen Mnuchin, the U.S. Treasury Secretary, and Yi Gang of the PBOC did meet. There's a picture of them smiling and shaking hands. Mnuchin said the meeting was constructive and candid, but it was not really for negotiating. So is that the best we can say right now, that at least they're willing to be photographed together and have a chat, even if there's no solution around the corner, apparently?
Well, look, as is typically the case with a G20 ministerial meeting, we did not see any major breakthroughs, any bold policy pronouncements, or anything along those lines. But I do think there was at least one noteworthy development from my point of view. I was struck by the extent to which Secretary Mnuchin was fairly forceful in defending U.S. trade actions and at least attempting to pin the blame for the current impasse on China. This is noteworthy because Secretary Mnuchin has traditionally been, at least in relative terms, a trade dove within the Trump administration. So I thought this was a bit of a departure for him.
Yeah, there's been a lot of ramping up of the rhetoric as well. We've seen a couple of US companies targeted. There is, in China, there is, of course, the Huawei story as well, and President Xi visiting a rare earths mine. Are these two sides increasingly painting themselves into a corner, or as a former negotiator yourself, is there a way out of all of this?
I think there is. I mean, certainly the situation right now where we're at an impasse. Both sides are digging in their heels and seemingly more interested in assigning blame than getting things back on track again. But keep in mind, any trade negotiation can be a long dance. And ultimately, what we're seeing now might prove to be a stumble or a stutter step. So don't overreact to where we are now. Even successful trade negotiations, it's not uncommon for them to have one or even two near-death experiences. That might be what we're going through now. So from my point of view, both scenarios, either deal or no deal, is still entirely plausible and entirely on the table.
Stephen, I understand your point, but given how deep-rooted these perceptions of what's wrong with the trade relationship are between the U.S. and China, would any deal that comes into fruition in the next few months really be anything more than a face-saving sort of symbolic deal?
Well, you've put your finger on precisely the point, because anything that we are able to achieve over the next couple months will be, by definition, a fairly superficial agreement which creates a bit of breathing room, a bit of temporary peace, but doesn't really address the key underlying issues, which is the fact that we've got two fundamentally different economic systems here which are struggling to coexist within the single global trade architecture that was predicated on entirely Western economic models. This is certainly not going to get wrapped up in a handful of months.